Hey guys, Patrick here, May 28th, 2021. We are at the end of the fifth month of 2021. We are also about 2 weeks away from haircuts, so I'm pretty pumped about that. That's why I'm rocking the 1970s newscaster look. Checking in with you on the market here at the end of May. So what we've just gone through, March and April, there's been a lot of historic months, right? But March and April in particular were huge months. They were record-setting months. Yes, we were in a pandemic, lockdown, all that other good stuff. Regardless, those 2 months set records. And so now the flavor out there or the temperature out there is what's happening. You know, is the market crashing? Have we reached a bubble? People are sort of waiting, and that's natural, right? Whenever anything is at that sort of running at that kind of speed, they're waiting for things to change. But that's the one thing we know about any real estate market. It always changes. It's always evolving. The dynamics are changing, buyer sentiment, seller sentiment, overall life sentiment. So that's what we're seeing right now. In terms of the data on the supply and demand side for the month of May, it's really just coming down to what you could refer to as more normal than what we just went through over the last 5 or 6 months. So today I'm going to go through three things or three identifiable pieces of the real estate market that are somewhat interesting and might explain where we're at. Okay, so let's get into it. Part one, historic market. If somebody walked up to you and said, during a COVID pandemic lockdown, the month of April 2021 would set an all-time record for the number of homes sold, you probably would not believe them. I would not have, before, but now I would based on what we saw. And that's exactly what happened. April 2021 set a record for all months, any month, doesn't matter which one, the highest number of homes sold in a given month, 1,163 sales. When you look back at the last 10 years of April, what was normal for the month of April, April 2021 beat that. It was 73% higher than what would have been normal for the number of sales. Second place, guess what? March 2021. Again, heavily impacted by COVID. 1,162 sales, so off by one. And March was 80% higher in the number of sales than a typical March going back 10 years. So first and second place, all-time number of monthly sales, 2021, March and April. Third and fourth place, July and August of last year. So again, not lockdown months. We weren't, everybody was still out and doing things, but third and fourth place was July and August 2020. So again, historic, really, because you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 spots happening during a pandemic. That's incredible. When we look back on that historically, we'll probably still be scratching our heads off into the future. But again, that speaks to how incredible the overall volume of activity has been during the last year. So that's part one. Let's get to part two. So a question we always get is the market correcting? Is there some big thing happening? I would say yes, it's correcting in a sense that it's coming back to earth. So I'm going to show you these graphs here. They're going to show you the particular months so far in 2021 and how they relate to the past 10-year average for those months. So you're going to see here, for example, Niagara region, the number of new listings in January were 15% under what was normal for the month of January. We're looking back over the last 10 years. The month of February, the new listings were 14% higher. The March was 50, April was 27, and May coming back down to 11% over. So again, you sort of see that camel's hump happening in the market. That's for new listings. So then we put sales up there, and you can see how massive sales were. So January, remember, new listings were 15% under the norm. Sales were 40% higher than the norm. And then February, 52. March, 80% higher. Then you had April at 73% higher. And so you see even May is still going to be about 25, 28% higher than the norm. So there's still a spread. It's not nearly as wide, which is why we're seeing things sort of return to some kind of a normal feel out there, because we don't have these elevated, 50% higher in listings and 80% higher in sales. That's a hyper active, busy, wow, can you believe it kind of a market. So now we're returning back. So both sales and listings curves are showing this sort of camel hump happening across the market. But that's Niagara region. When you look at St. Catharines, same kind of deal, just on a different scale. New listings in January and February. January is down 24%. February you saw an improvement, 11% down. Then once we got into March and April, again, March 32% up. But even then, new listings only up 16% in April. And now May is on pace to be kind of normal at up 1% over what was normal for the month of May going back a decade. Meanwhile, sales just pounded away and they outstripped inventory every month. So January up 21%, February up 20%, March 57%. So again, new listings were up 32%. Great, hooray! But the number of sales were still up 57%, and then again pulled back a little bit, 53%. And now here in May 2021, the number of sales are going to be about 13% higher than what was normal for the month, for that particular month of May, going back historically. So again, same trend. Niagara Falls, I'll show you here. I won't go through all the numbers, but the same kind of deal. You can see how huge the number of sales were. 53%, 69, 65, 55% higher than normal. 4 months in a row, that's massive, right? And so now here in May, on pace to be about 15 or 16% higher than what was normal. So that same trend, and that the camel's hump, that the peak of it shows you how absolutely monstrous those months were in comparison to the previous 10 years. And now we're seeing a settling down, a coming back to earth happening with the supply and the demand. What does that mean for you? It means maybe a little bit calmer waters out there, whether you are selling or buying. You're going to see a little bit less heatedness, a little bit less frenetic, and perhaps a little bit more of a civilized, fingers crossed, process for buying or selling. Okay, so that's part 2. Part 3, pricing. So what does supply and demand lead to? It leads to pricing, right? Too much supply, not enough demand, pricing goes down. Opposite, pricing goes up. Somewhere in the middle, you see relatively flattened out pricing, which is what we're seeing now. What we thought was going to happen is sort of happening. Is pricing has sort of reached its new altitude, and now that's where it's sitting. Whether you look at the Niagara region or you look at particular cities, we tend to focus on St. Catharines and Niagara Falls because they're number 1 and number 2 in the total number of homes sold. So it's a good indicator of the greater thing. But the same trends are continuing in general. And here they are. Basically, from November, December-ish into January, almost across the board, there was about a 10% bump in pricing. So when we came into January just came out roaring. And so after a little bit of a suppressed end of the winter or end of 2020, things bumped up. So again, Niagara region, it bumped up by about 10, 11% from November to January. April 2021, lockdown month, set an all-time record for any month for the average sale price. Average sale price was $707,000 for the Niagara region as a whole. Now it's never topped 700 ever. So that was, it sort of got up there, and now May it's come back down. It's going to settle underneath there. But again, that's monstrous, right? So after being in the 500s for 2020, it bumped up that 10%, and now it's been sitting sort of 650 to the 707, but 650 to very high sixes so far this year. Year to date, it's at 686,000 so far in 2020 for all of real estate in Niagara. That's a 24% increase over 2020. And that would be the biggest annual increase, at least on record, that I've been able to find. Obviously, we had a 21 or so percent back 4 years ago or so. We've had some big numbers lately. But again, to be up 24% in 1 year is huge. St. Catharines had never topped $600,000 for an average sale price ever until February of this year. And it's been sitting up there ever since. Really roughly, it was 590 something in January, and then it's been sitting between there and 635 so far this year. Average year to date for St. Catharines is now at 622,000, and again, that's up 25% over 2020. But again, after this, really steep climb from November, December, January, it's done this, and it's just sort of bounced along here. Same thing for Niagara Falls. Year to date is up 24%. It had never cracked 600,000 in a month either, like St. Catharines, until January 2021, and now it's been sitting there sort of 620 to 650 ever since. Year to date average for Niagara Falls is now at $640,000, and those sort of same trends happen city to city. As far as what happened at the end of the year, this sort of bounced up to this new stratosphere, and now it's just sort of sitting there, and that's for the time being, that's what we expect to happen. But we'll, obviously we can't predict the future as much as I'd like to say we could, but that's sort of what the expectation is, that pricing has simply reached its new altitude. So again, back at the beginning, we had historic market as far as the number of sales happening, setting new records, and then we moved into supply and demand, where as much as supply has set records, new listings have set records or done really well as well, just not quite as, and then we've seen a return to normal. And with that, as a byproduct of that spike in activity, we saw prices bounce up, and now we've seen them sort of sit where they are, give or take 3 or 4%, but largely they've been sitting in that same region so far this year. Okay, one bonus section. It's what we call whoa stats. It's patent pending, but you get the deal. So we're just going to blast through 3 quick parts of the market that are interesting, eye-opening, head-scratching, whatever you want to call it. So first thing, number of sales. Wow, as I mentioned already, the sales volume month to month is massive. But then when you extrapolate that out and look on an annual basis, we're in some pretty incredible times. So the previous record was 2016. There was 9,100 and something sales back then. 2021, if it keeps the pace up that it's on, we're going to crack 11,000 sales. To put that in context, over the last 10 years, the average number of sales per year has been about 7,500. So to be up about 25% in sales for an entire year is monstrous. And then to absolutely blow 2016 out of the water, a year that had us all spinning, is also incredible. So again, if it keeps up its pace, even if it falls off, we're still have a really solid shot at getting to 10,000 sales, which has never happened in Niagara real estate history ever. Second thing, billions. So we started looking at this a couple of years ago, the total dollar volume of all homes sold. So if you took every house that was sold, added up the sale prices, what do you get? Last year set a record, obviously, 2020, $4.4 billion for all of Niagara real estate added up, $4.4 billion. Think about that, how many times Jeff Bezos could buy all of Niagara real estate that traded hands, but that's besides the point. So 2021, what's it doing? It's actually on pace to be at about $7.8 billion. So it's going to go from 4.4 to 7.7, 7.8 in 1 year. Again, if sales keep their pace up, that's what it's on pace for 2021. And then third, the $1 million and up market has absolutely exploded. Back 5-6 years ago, it was sort of single digits. Niagara and Lake had the lion's share of sales, and then scattered a little bit of seasoning around the other cities as far as sales over $1 million. And now all cities have absolutely staked a claim in that market. So previously, 437 sales in 2021, sales over $1 million, 437 sales. That was a record by quite a bit. Now, here we are in 2021. 2021 on May 25th passed the annual total for 2020. So right now, 2021 is on pace for over 1,000 sales over $1 million. So that would account for about 10% of the entire Niagara market. 5 years ago, it was about 1.8 or 2% of the entire real estate market in Niagara. Now here we are in 2021, and it's going to sit around 10% of all sales. Further context to how much COVID impacted the high end of the market. In April 2020, there was 5 sales over $1 million. April 2020, 5 sales over $1 million. April 2021, there was 142 sales over $1 million, both heavily in COVID, right? April was a lockdown month. Same thing. But you talk about humans' willingness or ability to be resilient and push through. We went from 5 sales over $1 million to 142 sales over $1 million. That's incredible. So yeah, that end of the market, and again, not just Niagara Lake. Now you have St. Catharines, Fawn Hill, Fort Erie, Port Colborne, Grimsby. Everywhere has a serious stake in the $1 million plus market. That obviously that pushes the average prices up as well, because it's not just $1 million now; it's $2 million plus, $3 million plus, $4 million plus. So that's just drawn everything up. So again, a really interesting thing to see, a market that really was sort of there but kind of dormant or on the side. All of a sudden now it's a huge player in the overall landscape of the real estate market. Okay, so I think that's a wrap. Hopefully this was helpful. Any questions, reach out. The screen went blank earlier, but this is on our Market Insight part of our website. You go to our homepage, there's going to be a little button that says Market Insight. And on there, we keep track of Niagara region and then all the municipalities, Fort Erie, Welland, Thorold, Niagara Falls, Lincoln, all that stuff. And it keeps track of average sale price and then where we're at with supply and demand as well. And that gets updated as we go. So you can pop on there anytime. Website is right there. Otherwise, hopefully you're doing great. And as always, if you ever have any questions you want to ask us about a particular piece of the market, we are here anytime to help. Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate your time. Take care. Be well, and all the best. Okay, bye.